Me being married to Ryan, he'd want to talk husband, wife. And I would say, I don't have time to empathize right now. This is time to just get back on the phone. I'm sorry. Like you're 16. Like he had so many deals just fall through that year. He wanted me to feel sorry for him some days. And I'm like, we just don't have time for that.
Welcome to the Resilient Recruiter Podcast. This is your host, Mark Whitby. And I'm really excited to introduce you to one of our clients, Jenny Diaz.
I always have 17,000 tabs open. There's so many things open on my computer. I am distracted all day, but if I look down, which I do constantly, and see something that's always there, makes a huge difference. And I can't make that happen on a computer. I think it's true for me if I write it down and I have a little bit more physical effort into making the plan, I'm more like, I'm doing this.
Jenny is one of the co-founders of Apex Recruitment Group, and they founded in 2021.
In my heart of hearts, every time I sit back and think, where do we want to go? I start writing goals. It's always growing a team. Clearly, we were challenged in that last year, but I think as we're coming out of that, we want that.
What makes this episode special is a couple of things. Number one, we're doing it in person in Tampa, Florida. And number two, Jenny's just been to our Recruitment Coach Live Summit, which we hosted in St. Pete for a couple of days. And also, it's just always lovely to catch up with Jenny and learn from her. So Jenny, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm excited, and I think people say humbled too often, but I am extremely humbled to be sitting with you, Mark. So I appreciate you taking the time.
I think what's cool is I think you found me through the podcast, right?
I found you before we started Apex. I probably listened for 1 or 2 years, and just every day I was like, I want to do that. I want to do that. So yes, thank you. This is part of the journey.
Fantastic. And so we just literally wrapped up the live conference. What were your impressions, takeaways?
Yeah, so a lot. As usual, there's a lot to think about, a lot to process. I think the main one, the key one is, and this is sincere, like how happy I came. I'm just glad I went because there were a million things going on. It wasn't the best year last year. I didn't want to show up and tell people it wasn't the best year last year, but you show up and you realize like these are people I know, they're friends, they're here to encourage. And I think just that momentum over time has meant a lot. And so that was number one. Not even the speakers were great, and I'm grateful for everything they said, but just being around people who are in it and from a different perspective, was really big. And that always is, I think, maybe the biggest thing. But learned a lot, have a lot of notes. I will process them all on the plane ride home, potentially. Yeah.
Fantastic. I think you're absolutely right. Like being with other people who get it and who are, we all have our own struggles and journey, but in recruiting, and you can just be real, and they've been there and they've had their own battles, and
right.
Yeah, definitely that's cool. So, I'm going to ask you this: how did you get into recruiting?
How long do you have? So, long story short, no, I'm going to make it longish. I got a degree in Hebrew. I went to Israel, got a degree in Hebrew Bible, realized I don't want to be an academic, and I have many good friends that did really cool things with that. I came back during the recession, so it was 2011, and had no idea what I was going to do. And my uncle at the time worked at a car rental dealership. Or car rental place. He was really high up, and he said, "If you need a job," and I don't want to be there. Well, I needed a job. So I reached out and I ended up in car rental. Not crazy about that situation. Had a let me rethink everything moment. Ran to a dude ranch that extended for 2 years and finished up at the dude ranch with a small bonus that I thought was enough to like take me around the world. And it did somehow. And on the way, I met some friends in the UAE, and we met a recruiter, like my first real-time recruiter. And I thought, maybe I want to do recruiting. And he said, don't do it. Whatever you do, don't do it. And he gave me this test, and he looked at my results and he said, nah, you shouldn't be a recruiter. So I came home to the US, still no job, ended up in the DC area, and had read all these books kind of leading up to what I want to do. And they just said, show up, be places. So I ended up at a networking group, and a recruiter was there. And I said, can I can I show up at your place? And longer story short, they hired me and I started as an admin. Then people quit because people quit recruiting all the time, and I
Yeah.
became a recruiter. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So wait a sec. So by way of uh, studying Hebrew, traveling,
Hmm.
car washing,
Yeah.
working on a dude ranch, you somehow found your way to recruiting. But the interesting bit of the story is two things. Number one is you met a recruiter and thought, "Oh, I might like to do that."
Yeah.
And the second part is he told you not to. So the first part, what was it about him describing what he did that you thought sounded
Sure.
appealing?
So rewind.
Okay.
The Dude Ranch. I got back into reading after academic life. I realized I actually like reading. And I read all these books about what you want to do, what I want to do when I grow up. And they were all by recruiters. And I was way more interested in what they were doing than the things they were writing about. And one of those books was actually, I forget the exact title, like guerrilla marketing for the job search or something like that. So full circle, yesterday I actually met David Perry in person. I'm like, hey, you're the reason I'm a recruiter. But he had
Wow.
all these extreme tactics to get in front of people and show up that I had no idea about. So I just was following the book, and I knew I wanted to do recruiting and had an opportunity to meet this person in the UAE who told me no, you shouldn't. But here I am.
So I didn't know the David Perry
It,
connection.
I saw him on the guest list, and I'm like, I know this book. And so I met him yesterday, and I met his wife first, and I said, are you all the? And they were absolutely.
Are
Have you
you
read
the
our book?
David Perry?
Yeah, yeah. So it had a life changing impact on me.
Wow, that's so cool that you actually met him by like complete
Yeah, 10
coincidence
years later.
yesterday.
I think I started in recruiting 10 years ago this week. So
That is awesome.
full circle.
So his book is called um, Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters
Can
or
put it in the
Guerrilla Job
show
Hunting.
notes.
It's one
I,
or the other.
it's I'm sorry, David, if you ever see this.
Yeah, we'll put a link to the book
Okay, that
in the show
works.
notes
Yeah.
and with the correct title.
Yes.
So that's awesome. So you'd already researched and kind of had an idea of this. Why did this recruiter tell you not to do it? What was the rationale there?
So there's lots of job fit profile tests,
Okay.
and fair. He gave me the test and he said, this will help you decide what you want to do. And I came up as very analytical, very research oriented, introverted, all the things that my husband is not. And he is also a recruiter. And I totally understand why he said this won't work. And I also understand that just when people tell me I can't do things, it's a somewhat of a motivating factor. So I just
Yeah.
went with it.
All right. And here we are 10 years later.
Yeah.
So that is awesome. So then you managed to get yourself into a recruiting job but then how did the whole Apex Recruitment Group thing come about?
Right. So that was 7 years later. I worked at a boutique firm in the DC area. It was a startup, had a very big personality founder, learned a ton from them, and thought I need to switch gears and go work with a firm where I'm going to have a little bit more training. It ended up being it was a large company that had just come to the US, so everyone was very entrepreneurial. And I love that, and I realized this is what I keep gravitating toward. It's not really to the big company. So as our company became a bigger company, it felt less and less a fit. Meanwhile, Ryan and I had met through a series of events. He was at this company as well. He was in New York. I was in DC. He moved down. I said, we're not living in DC forever. This is way too expensive. He seemed like he liked that idea. And so when the company offered to transfer me, uh, I went to Raleigh. He followed. And then our other founder, James, ended up in Raleigh as well. So we were there. 1 month later, COVID hit. And we were in a new market doing a new thing. Ryan was working internal at the time. But James and I were basically kind of on this island starting this thing from scratch. And as that couple of years progressed, the question was, we're all here. We have the skills. I always wanted to start a business really. And Ryan is always just wants to stick it to the man, so he is ready to go. And we pulled James in somehow and made it happen.
Awesome. So you were more or less building a business from scratch anyway, but just for a bigger company. So you're like, well, why not? If this is, it's hard building a business, right?
Right.
It's hard.
Right.
And why not just do our own thing? So I love that. So that was 2021. And then actually,
Mhm.
we're going to do a deep dive on Apex and what's been
Okay, sure.
happening there, what's worked, what hasn't worked. But I just want to circle back. So you're 7 years in recruiting prior to that.
About more or less.
And yet this analytical introvert has found success in recruiting. So how do you explain that?
So how do I I don't necessarily. Well, I think meeting recruiters, there's some from every walk of life, and
Definitely.
if you meet Ryan and James, you have met Ryan and James, you know they are very charismatic. Ryan tells great stories. He's so funny. James can just win you over in a second. And I think those are amazing qualities in recruiters. I operate a little differently. I have my day plan. It is golden. And I read a book. I read books. So as opposed to Ryan and James, I just dove into recruiting. Like, what can I learn? And the first thing I read was make a day plan and stick to it. So I just followed the processes I could have. And I think from living overseas, I was ready to be uncomfortable and pivot. And I think that was a maybe a big thing that goes against my personality naturally, but I've kind of grown into.
Mm.
And that has worked for me.
Love it. I agree 100%. There's not one personality
Mhm.
that makes a successful recruiter. I've met people, obviously you do get the extreme introverts and then, but I don't believe there's one type. I think it's other qualities that are more important for sure. Um, so I love that. Tell me about the Jenny Diaz Day Plan because this is all recruiters need a day plan. And if you work for
Ryan
a big,
James.
yeah, exactly. Um, if you get trained at a big company, they kind of drum that into you.
Right.
But then a lot of people, when they start their own business, they stop doing that, and it is super valuable. So, what do you tell me your planning process?
Sure. So I have this Microsoft Word doc. It's nothing special, but it has every hour 8 a.m. to 6 a.m. I don't always start at 8. I don't always end at 6, but gives me some flexibility. And it has half hour increments. I print it out. I take a pencil because the day will change, and I write down whatever's on my Microsoft calendar. I have a list of follow-ups that people I'm going to follow up with. That's usually like 5 to 30 people, depending. I have my 3 main goals. I have my 2 jobs I'm gonna work that day. I get it. I have things I'm grateful for that I've learned. I have my long-term goals. I have all these things, on a different side of the paper. My references I need to take, uh, and some other notes. And it's just a Microsoft doc that's evolved. But I fill all that out first, and then I look at it, and then I say, "Okay, what do I need to do for my day?" And then I just fill it out in pencil. The phone rings, I erase something and rework it as the day progresses. So that's it.
That is awesome. Really, really like that. And so it sounds like this is something that you've kind of created and evolved over time, like
Mhm.
the sections. I don't think the Hayes Day Plan had like "What am I grateful for" on it,
No,
right?
no.
I
And
think
I don't
that's
always fill it out, and that's on me, but yeah,
I love that. So you write this out every day?
90% of days.
That's awesome. We used to say that if you do your day plan once out of 5 days, you're gonna be performing at 20%. If you fill it out 3 times a week, you're gonna be performing at 60%, right? And so it's 90% is great.
Thank you.
Not many people get that.
There have been times where I've lost it for several months, but when I come back, there is instant just focus, so yeah.
Focus is the superpower that
Mhm.
all recruiters need for sure. It's something I need. It's my Achilles heel. I'm scattered and almost ADHD, pursuing lots of different ideas. So, explain to me why it's important to write it out as opposed to why not just type it onto the Word doc or use like
Sure.
Outlook calendar or whatever?
Yeah. So short is it doesn't work for me if I do it on a computer.
Yeah.
I think that's old school. And I also think, again, I read this book years ago, the first one I read in recruiting, that was, you need to write it out. So I just took it. But I have tried doing it digitally and failed. And I find, and I actually put a LinkedIn post the other day about this, I always have 17,000 tabs open. And I don't know what all the things are on a computer. I don't know all the names, but I just know there's so many things open on my computer. I am distracted all day, but if I look down, which I do constantly, and see something that's always there, makes a huge difference. And I can't make that happen on a computer. I also think, and I think it's true for me, if I write it down and I have a little bit more physical effort into making the plan, I'm more like, I'm doing this.
You're more committed because
I'm more committed. That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense. I get that. Awesome. And I like the different sections you had as well, follow-ups, reference checks, which jobs I'm going to work. But explain to me, why are you working 2 jobs a day? Is that what that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, so usually there's 2. It's blank, so I might just write 1. I'm typically write 2, and realistically, I usually work 1.
Okay.
But I I guess it's something I learned. Somebody told me I'm not that creative, I suppose, but somebody told me, like, you can at most work 2 jobs a day. So
Sure.
I write those, like, the definite and the maybes.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I guess someone who's in a delivery role could
Mhm.
work like 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon or something, but I
Right.
feel like if you're 360.
It's challenging, yeah. I
Yeah.
rarely get to I forgot, I also have a submittal section. That's important.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other sections you've not told us? Because I
There's a
wanna.
thankful this is from memory, so there's a thankful for and a thankful to section. So, I also don't usually fill that out, but, like, people I really should say thank you to, because I need to remember that, but I don't
Yeah.
always.
Okay, awesome. I love that.
There might be I think that's it.
This is brilliant, Jenny. Okay, so, um, you guys get together, you decide, "Hey, let's start a business."
Right.
And that was in 2021, and, like, I believe you guys, got past 1,000,000 in year 2, which is phenomenal.
Mhm.
But what was that first year like?
So, we started in 2021 December,
Okay.
so we really didn't
Oh,
start till, like, 2022.
2022,
We
yeah.
thought, "Okay, let's take the tailwinds of the new year." So, we started 2022 really. The first so you asked what the first year was like?
Yeah.
The first year. First year was funny, or it was tough, and we knew it would be tough, but we also didn't know what we didn't know. So I think our first client was one. Our first bill was paid the end of March, beginning of April, and that was just like, "Wow,
Yeah.
people will pay us? This is so cool." It worked, but also, wow, we are gotta make some money and scramble. But I remember, I think I put this in the prep form, just I I remember when this person started, and then we looked at each other, "How do we make an invoice?" And so we pulled up QuickBooks and we just, like, looked at it. Like, where do we start? And, it's really easy, so if anyone needs help, ask me. But you pulled up make an invoice, and then it, like, populates number 1, and we're like, "Can't put number 1. They'll know we're frauds." So we put we looked around, and, James has a daughter, her birthday is December 15th, so we just put 12/15, and it felt like very, like, a good number to get going, and everything's gone on from there. So if anybody ever listens that, we build, they kinda know from there which invoice they are.
That's hilarious. I love that. What were some of the struggles that you went through in that very first year of, like, building a business from scratch?
Yeah, I think we didn't know what we didn't know, and that we expected that to a degree, but you just can't plan on those things. Uh, we had a non-compete, so whether it was enforceable or not, I don't know, but James and I decided to respect it. So we started a brand new market, and we all took on slightly different roles. We decided to work a full desk and kind of all be recruiters. Like, we all knew how to do that. But we had different roles and goals. And so seeing some ups and downs among us, and just, early on, we've all had our moments in the business where it's like, this isn't for me. And there was that first year especially. And so pulling each other along, like, "No, we're committed. No, get back on the phone." And, me being married to Ryan, he'd wanna talk husband, wife, and I would say, I don't have time to empathize right now. This is time to just get back on the phone. I'm sorry, like, you're 16." Like, he had so many deals just fall through that year.
Oh,
So many counter offers that he was in a very tough market, in that particular role, and he wanted me to feel sorry for him some days, and I'm like, "We just don't have time for that." So, that was his own challenge.
I I want to circle back to the whole
Yeah,
dynamic of working with a spouse
yeah,
and also a
yeah,
friend, but, just sticking with that first year
yeah.
then, and, yeah, so it sounds like you were just really hustling, and it wasn't we should have said, so you guys do DC, Virginia, and the Carolinas? Um, and it's construction recruitment, right?
Construction management, right.
So, what were the hurdles and how did you overcome them?
So, the first year, we didn't do all that because some of that was in our non-compete. Our
Got it.
first year, we said, "We're gonna do Greenville, South Carolina," which I had been to once when I was, like, 16 for a soccer camp. So that was our familiarity with Greenville, South Carolina, but we wanted to pick a market that looked promising that we could drive to because meeting with our clients is really, really important. So the first hurdle was not knowing anybody, even in that city, not let alone clients, candidates. We just didn't know anybody. But we made it a point, we're gonna get down there as much as we can. We're gonna get in front of people, and it's an incredible market, so people are just very warm, and that was, I think, the right play for us. Um, so not knowing anyone, having that non-compete, not having any really existing, I already said, relationships, our database just we didn't have anything built up. We really started from scratch December 20th without, our ATS was purchased. We just started filling it in and going from there. So that was challenging. Other challenges,
Let me just pause
yeah,
on that
sure,
one, Jenny, because so I think this is like all you're doing all new business is the thing, right?
right,
There's no existing
right.
accounts, there's nothing. So how did you guys attack that?
So we focused on. I mean, it's a really small market. So I think that again, I think that was probably the right play because us focusing on us instead of calling New York and being the 13,000th call they got that day from a recruiter, we were calling a little place that said, "Yeah, I get some calls from recruiters, but, you show up at their office. This is the first recruiter I've ever met with." That was
Wow, that's
powerful,
cool.
right?
Yeah,
So that's one way, and then just all doing this place together, we could multiply ourselves.
right.
And so the jobs came in very quickly. We also had a great 2022 was a great year just for construction. So that helped a lot because people were okay to meet with us because they truly needed to hire. Uh, so yeah,
So it sounds like meeting people in person was important to you guys, which I agree with, by
hmm
the way. But why did you decide to do it that way?
to meet in person.
Yeah,
Part of it is our training, and I think the other part is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons we started the company was we were building relationships with like entrepreneurs that we could sit down and talk with about their needs and they like that made an impression on us and we saw that if you meet somebody it's not only that they want to trust you, which is true, but you also are invested in them versus hey, you need somebody, okay, fine, thanks, and hang up the phone and they're just somebody. But
mhm,
every recruiter says this, and I think most people are genuine about pursuing this, but we want it to be about the relationship more than the transaction. We wanted to go meet. I think our first meeting was with Mike. Mike told us where to eat that night. He recommended some restaurants, and we got to go to that restaurant, experience it with him. Well, not with him, but come back and say, hey, we ate at this restaurant. It was great. Where else should we eat? And just have like a real, it's just more enjoyable.
absolutely. I love that, and it's so true. Over the phone, quick conversation, more transactional. That's not really a strong foundation to build a relationship, a business relationship, over. So, you're going to get more rapport. You get to know people better. You have their dedicated, undivided attention as well, right? Because if it's a phone call and they're squeezing you in between meetings, and they're distracted. That's not the same as the quality you get from like actually sitting with someone for, an hour, right?
Yeah. You're saying this better than me, but all these things, yeah.
No, but this is why I think
Yeah.
you choose the right strategy 100%. And people feel like they know you better and they can trust you because they've actually seen you. They looked into your eyes, right?
Right.
And you can do that. I think Zoom or Teams is the next best thing, but it's still not the same as like what we're doing today, Jenny. Like
Right.
most of our interviews are over or on a virtual platform for obvious reasons because we interview
Right.
people over the world, but it's a different connection when you're physically in the same space with someone. So
Yeah, 100%.
yeah.
And I would just add the other thing too is just walking into an office, you have a total different sense of a company. Um, I think it's 360 or it's all the senses, right?
Yes.
And there are people once if I've taken a job order before meeting somebody and then I walk into their office and look around, I will send different people to them.
Yes, that is an absolutely good point. The other thing is, I feel like during COVID,
Mm.
and then obviously we stopped doing that,
Right.
but I think a lot of recruiters never picked it up again, and they just got out of the habit. And we definitely encourage all our clients to get back out there, get in front of your clients, and of course that's easier to do in a local market. But even if you recruit nationally, go on a road trip or target a city that you already have a couple of clients at, and then see what other meetings you can schedule. So last December, we actually did a little competition for our clients, which was like a client visit
Yeah.
competition. Which, because the funny thing is, if you work in a big agency, then they do these kinds of competitions,
Mhm.
right? But when you have your own business, especially if you're a solo recruiter or a small firm, you don't do a competition, right?
We have that competition
Do
going
you?
right now, like
Oh,
literally this quarter.
love it.
So
Who's
hopefully
winning?
I think Ryan and I are tied, but I'm about to overtake him this coming week. I'm pretty sure.
Love that. Let's talk then about that because it's always interesting. We have a
Mhm.
few clients who are like married to their business partner.
Mhm.
Um, my wife Lisa and I tried this, and it what didn't work for us. So how has that dynamic affected the business with, and also being friends first with James as
Mhm.
well? So does that complicate things?
Maybe and you'd have to ask Ryan and James their perspective too. I think it does. It's like a double-edged sword, and I think for most people, James is the type of person. I'll answer the James part first. He's the type of person that really just gets along. So
He
he
seems pretty easygoing.
he's pretty easygoing. Yeah, overall, he just likes people and he can deal with just idiosyncrasies. And so I think other people told him, "Probably don't get in business with a couple."
Right.
And I think he was like, they're my friends. You can ask him now what his perspective is, but uh, he is thankfully somebody that just goes with it. I think, and I believe the bigger challenge is probably between Ryan and me sometimes, because there is, and we've tried, but I don't believe we will ever have separation as long as we're working together between
Of course, it's
work and home.
impossible. You
Yeah,
can try and sort of put boundaries like, "Oh, this is work time, this is,"
right.
but yeah, it's gonna bleed
It bleeds
together.
over. So it's it's just like everything. It's great some days, and some days, like the other day, I was telling him I think we were disagreeing about something in work, and I said, "You know what? It would be really nice if I could go home to my husband and he would take my side and he would just talk. He would know that there's a jerk at work that's just not agreeing with me and he's wrong, and he's like, "Yeah, but also we get to talk about it now." He was just going with it. So that's a challenge, but our conversations are so strange. If we're talking and we're trying to, like, make sense of something not business related, suddenly it'll be, imagine if a candidate said this, and we just frame it as like a recruiting situation. Imagine a client says XYZ. How would you deal with that? Well, that's exactly like this totally unrelated thing. And it's like, oh yeah, yeah, okay, I see. So
That's hilarious.
um,
So, yeah, it looks from the outside, it looks like it's working for you guys, and so,
most days.
yeah, so that's awesome that you've made that work. So, it sounds like it was a busy market, and you guys were getting after it, and you were, like, trying to get meetings and that kinda stuff, and you were getting good job flow. What would you say were the kind of really keys to getting to your first million?
Uh, I mean, you have all stars on the show that that make that look easy, and I think for us, it certainly helped that we had 3 people who had experience at doing different things. So that is way less crazy than one person getting to 1,000,000 in a year. So that was one.
Well, okay, let me
Yeah,
speak on that because
sure.
for sure, 3 people can go faster than one person alone,
Mhm.
right? And like, if you just think of the analogy of if you're in a boat, like rowing, you think of like, I mean, I don't row, but like you look at it in the
Yeah,
Olympics or whatever. If you're a one person boat, then you're not going to be able to go as fast as 3. I don't know if there is a 3-person boat, but
no idea.
rowing together at the same time in sync with each other, you're going to go a lot faster, right? But that aside, it's still a big achievement, right? To pass $1 million in a year, that's awesome. So you're all experienced,
Mhm.
you're working together in the same market, but what were some of the other sort of in terms of strategies and tactics that worked for you?
Well, I think we did connect with you that year, so our first year, and so, you certainly helped us get processes in place. We we really I think focusing on that niche and knowing what it was, especially in the beginning, we were very focused on Greenville, then Greater South Carolina, which is still not a very big market. Uh, we started getting repeat business, we started getting repeat candidates, we could send candidates to multiple jobs, so all those things, played out. Uh, our database, I feel like, was getting very well put together and coded, tagged, etcetera. Hiring, Karen and Tanya to help us, our virtual team to help us just get it all orderly. It's really helpful. It's still really helpful. Uh, those things, meeting in person, uh, again, the tailwinds of the market, and just basically no distraction that year. I think we brought in one person that year, and he was somewhat trained, kind of worked along with us. So we could just focus. Again, back to the focus thing. It wasn't to me, it was a good achievement, and I looked at some point, I ran the statistics of businesses that make $1,000,000, and I felt really good about it. I don't remember the number, but it wasn't that many. Texted Ryan and James like, "Yay, we did it!" And but in reality, I think we have potential to keep going. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I've read that stat too, and I can't remember it either, but it's got to be less than 20% of
it was,
companies get
yeah, I
to
think it was 5 or 10. It was something that I was, oh
10%
wow,
of
okay,
5% of company. Yeah, it's something like that. So yeah, which and considering there's millions of companies, you know, that's already quite an impressive achievement. So, how have things evolved from there then, Jenny?
so that was 23 last year we I, we learned a lot. It was a challenge. Last year was a little more challenging and for several different reasons. We started the year, the market got a little softer around. I don't know if we immediately noticed that. We branched out very quickly. We just talked about our geography. So it was no longer Greenville, South Carolina. It was Charleston to ultimately DC. We added DC in the middle of the year last year, which was a market Ryan and I were very familiar with. But coming back, I came back to Raleigh where we had our non-compete, and we hired some people. So we had 4 people last year in addition to us, in addition to our virtual team. And we spread out into more markets, and suddenly everything was new again, and it did not work well. I will just I was
Yeah. So you guys expanded when the market was softening, so that's got to make it
yeah,
tougher.
and I think I think we I don't think the market softening was it's not the market's fault, like, but I think our strategy and commitment to what our initial strategy was kind of got lost in there, and we brought on people knowing this is gonna take time to make this work, and knew but didn't know in our hearts, like, how much time it actually would take. Same with rebuilding or coming back to a market we don't have a database for times 2 or 3. Uh, it's just it was like hitting a wall, honestly.
Wow. So you hired 4 people in 2024.
We hired we hired 3.
Okay.
Wait, I can't add. We had we had 4 people in addition to us. So we hired 2 in 23,
Okay.
and 1 came earlier, 1 came later, and then we hired 2 more in the middle of the year, but again, not very strategic the way we did it.
Okay. So what's the team size as it stands
So
now?
today it is 4.
4
So
of
in
you.
some
Okay.
ways we felt like we went back and, um, great people that we had. It just what everything wasn't working for us.
So I'd love to talk more about that because so many small recruiting businesses go through that of like hiring and then people don't work out and then they shrink again. And then they're like, oh, is it even worth hiring? Because it's so hard, right? Or whatever. So I'd love to hear your experience with that. But also, just one of my clients used to say recruiting is like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and 3 to the side.
Mm.
It's like not success is not linear, right?
Mhm.
It's not just continuously going up. It's also kind of down and, there's peaks and
Yeah.
troughs. So, looking back on 2024 then, what were some of the lessons or some of the things that you would do differently?
Yeah, so I a lot, and I'm sure there's more. I probably should write all these down before it gets too far away. Uh, One, I think, and we all kind of agree, we honestly threw people in new markets, which was not helpful. "Oh, we're managed, we know it enough," and, I don't think we'll do that again. I say I don't think because, I'm not sitting here with my 2 partners, but we've said that, so I think we're all on the same page. Um, that's one. I think again, we put people even on, like, the market I was rebuilding, I kind of brought somebody along with me or was supporting her and then jumped in, and I just don't think that was the way to set them up for success. I don't think we were matter of fact enough amongst, the partners, amongst everyone about, "Hey, these are really what the KPIs need to be," and we left a big company because part of it was, we're just all it is KPIs." Well, I love KPIs now, but I don't say that out loud too often, and I don't say it. But I think you could celebrate a week, and I'm not the best at celebrating, but you can have a great week and celebrate it. Yes, we got everything, and then kind of forget about it the next couple weeks and, "Oh, okay, I'll get it next week." And you forget that there's trailing indicators. So one thing I have done this year, just with the team member I'm working with now, is and he probably hates it, but I'm telling him, "Listen, every week you're gonna fill out this form, and it's more than just KPIs. It's like how are you feeling? It's a lot of things that are important to talk about. But on our one-on-ones, it's that, and then there's last week's KPIs. There's 30 days KPIs. There's 90 days. There's 6 months. There's 12 months because that's the real story.
Yes.
And I completely missed that with, some of the folks we were working with. It was just, "Let's just talk about last week. Okay, it was good, it was bad, great, let's move on." But I think being able to look back and say, "Hey, this is where I'm going. This is what we're doing." Are they green, yellow, or red? I actually have them. I have them marked green, yellow, or red. And, if last week was all red, but your trailing 6 months is green, like, let's get back at it. If it's all red for 6 months, well, this is a story, right? And I think that is something I really took to heart this past year.
That's where your analytical skills
There it
actually are
is.
coming
Yeah.
into play here, so that's brilliant. Yeah, I love that. The looking at patterns over a period of time and, using that to help people to maximize their performance is fantastic, Jenny. That's a great idea. Um, what else did you learn or take away from going through a rough patch last year?
I mean, it was very helpful to have partners in it with me. I don't know if I've said this already on the show if we were talking before, but there were days when I told Ryan, "I think this is it. I'm done with recruiting. Probably won't be a recruiter tomorrow, or maybe I'm gonna go internal." Like, there's always this threat, and he would remind me like, "Nah, you got to do this," and that was the conversation, and it worked vice versa. And James came up to us a couple times and said, "Guys, what's going on? I don't think this." James is a recruiter. Like he is. I'm sure if he took that test, his personality would just come up recruiter. Like there's no other option for him. Um, but I think the partnership was really, really helpful in that because we could look around and say, no, get back, like, come back. Like, we've all been there. You're going to get over it. You're going to have a great month soon. I don't know when it is, but like, just get back at it. And I think having other people to talk us off a ledge was a benefit.
Absolutely. I totally can. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Um, you mentioned about hiring, and
Mhm.
obviously you've learned quite a lot from both positive and things that didn't work out. Going forward, what are the plans for growth then?
Yeah. Well, I do want to say, I think we hired just incredible individuals. And the failure is where we struggled last year. I want to say just we take responsibility for that. And so where we had to make some decisions that just didn't feel good, um, yeah, that's on us. But as far as where,
So hold on,
yeah,
let's double click on that
yeah,
because that is a winning attitude, Jenny, for sure. And not everybody is willing to take ownership and responsibility for if a team member, um, not making it, and that's powerful. So, great job. The thing with taking responsibility is also means that you can change it, you can improve, you can do something different. Whereas if you blame other people, like, oh, they were no good, or, those are the sort of recruiters that like blame candidates when their deal falls through or whatever. That's not going to lead to long-term success. The most successful recruiters take ownership out of everything, right? Good and bad. And the deal falls through and they go, okay, what could I have done differently? Not in a way that you beat yourself up, right? Because that's not productive or healthy, but what could I have done differently that might have led to a different outcome? Or what, maybe there's nothing that you could have done differently, but what were the red flags that I missed, or what were the questions that I didn't ask, or the earlier warning signs that I didn't pick up on that if I'd known earlier, I could have changed tack. I could have found a backup candidate or whatever, or I could have told the client not to make the offer. So I think the same thinking applies as a leader to team members as well. Like, um, if someone doesn't work out, then let's look at, well, you know, what could we have done differently as a business or as a manager to have, you know, maybe had a different outcome there. So I think that's a really healthy success trait.
thanks. I don't know if they feel that way, but I do want to just reiterate, I am so grateful for them because they are great people.
Awesome. Must is and that's like the worst part
It's
of
the
running a
worst. It's
business,
the
right?
worst.
Is letting people go. That's not you don't start a business with that in mind, right?
Right, right. And I mean, they were basically on us like, hey, the payroll. We're not going to make it with all the things we need to do.
That's
So
rough.
yeah, I want to put that out there and say they are great.
That's cool. And so you've kind of consolidated back down to so there's three of you plus one employee plus two virtual team members.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So so where do we go from here then?
Well, great question. I think for me, the conference was I I just want to focus personally this year. Have a year where there's a few distractions, but not many. I'm helping the guy develop DC right now, so I will be up there hopefully next week.
Cool.
Um, but focusing on him, we're all kind of committed to how can we all be invested in the person we're training right now. Um, we may hire again at the end of the year. It is not it is not something I am going to do, but if James and Ryan kind of find the runway or the capacity, we're going to be supportive of that. We have talked about continuing to grow, and coming from this conference, there is always this. Maybe we should just be independent recruiters because it works so well for so many people, and I totally, totally respect it, and I think there's incredible wisdom in it. But in my heart of hearts, every time I sit back and think, where do we want to go? I start writing goals. It's always growing a team. It's challenging us in ways that we're truly, clearly we were challenged in that last year. Um, but I think as we're coming out of that, We want that.
Awesome. That's the right answer then, Jenny, because you obviously have that desire, right? Where does that must mean something, that you have this desire to grow and to scale. And so at our live summit, we had speakers with all different business models and sizes, right? Which is cool. And there's not one right definition of success, right? Is what does success mean to you? What is going to fulfill you, and so on. So we had Aaron Opolewski, who's massively scaled, right? And for him, my key takeaway there comes down to that, like, you've decided, you've made that commitment, we are going to grow. And that means that, okay, we hired some people, we lost some people. That's not the end of the story, right? Now, okay, what can we learn? What can we improve? Okay, let's go again and hire more people. And you just keep going because you're committed to achieving that. And then we had others who, like Nate Schott, who is solo with 2 virtual team members, and he's billing lots with that business model.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mike Williams, who's kind of in between. He wants to grow. He's at like 7 people right now. So yeah, I think if you guys have that desire, then that must mean that you're meant to do it.
We'll see what it means. I do think we have a lot of infrastructure to still put down to make it easier next time. And the next time it's not tomorrow. It's maybe several months out. But
Sure.
I think that's a takeaway, because even when we were shopping that board, I was like, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish? And it was about a team again. I'm like, okay.
That's funny. So chopping the board, we should just explain.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Explain the board.
Yeah. Do you want to explain?
No, you go for it.
So as a fun exercise at the end of the event, then you chop through a wooden board with your hand.
Yeah.
Right. And so are you willing to share what was the goal on that?
I'll speak generally. It was getting a number of people to a certain amount in billings
Right.
by 2028.
Love it. A couple of things I wanted to follow up on. One was the culture of the business, because when you're a one-person business, you don't really need to think about culture.
Yeah.
Right? But when there's starting to be more people working together as a team, initially you, Ryan, and James,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've added other people, then that becomes something we need to really reflect on and design, like be intentional about designing rather than just have a culture by default. So how would you describe the culture at Apex, and how and why is it that way?
Yeah. So I think culture is a big question. When we take in jobs, we always ask about culture, but I think there's probably more to it than what I will share, right? I do think I'm going to talk about the good and bad. I think part of what went wrong was we were just 3 people just getting deals, making things happen, going to a coffee shop when it seemed like a good time to go. And then when we brought people in, they're like, "Oh, this recruiting is great. This is so nice." But they didn't see a culture of, "Hey, this is how you're excellent every day." And I think that was a failure on our part, and something that we have reflected on. The good side of our culture, and I think the enduring thing that has brought people to us is, I think I work with 2 great guys. We immediately, I think probably our second conversation was, "So what are we going to do for kickoff next year?" And then it was, no, our old company called it kickoff. We're going to call it tip off. So every year we have agreed, and this year it was a little bit of a fight. Like, do we really need to do this? And the takeaways was, yes, we're going to do this every year, no matter what. So the first year it was just Ryan, James, and I. We went to Colorado, climbed a mountain, the epic Apex story. The second year we went to, where did we go? Wasn't that long ago. Oh, we took a road trip to California. We saw Yosemite, Big Sur, some other places. And then our third year, we went to a resort in Mexico, a little more low key. But each year we come back with, stories and just something to look forward to. And then the first quarter so right now we have a kind of quarterly team challenge, and there's always a challenge about who gets to pick where we go within reason. So this year our quarterly challenge is how many internal candidates can we bring in and interview, Whoever has the most over February and March gets to pick their place. And we've named our places, and there's a big rush for it. So stuff like that. We love to
That's
eat.
awesome.
I think we've brought in people and we've all gained a couple pounds, so we're kind of working on that. So then there's like the shift culture that's extreme diet or fitness culture that creeps in when we eat too much. But we do try to celebrate.
It sounds like a fun
We
place to work.
Ryan and James are way more fun than me, so all credit to them. And then I don't know what I bring, but something.
Well, okay, let me reflect a few things back
Yeah.
to you. So, first of all, you made a really interesting comment that trying to bring new people into, so you're the three of you, very experienced doing deals and kind of have found your own way of working,
Mhm.
but then bringing a new person in, and you're not necessarily the role model of how they should build their desk from scratch, right?
Mhm.
So, it's thinking about how do we build a culture that will work for people coming and joining us
Right.
who aren't already established,
Right.
right? And so that's an interesting dynamic. I love it does sound fun, Jenny. And I remember when you went and climbed that
Yeah.
mountain in Colorado and you took pictures for LinkedIn and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was obviously your name is Apex. And so there was like the mountain theme. That was cool. And I love that you still do kind of competitions, even though you're small,
Mhm.
because that makes it fun. For sure. Yeah, anything else that's kind of core to, your culture at Apex? Let me pretend that I'm a recruiter taking a job order to recruit for you, and I'm saying, "Tell me about the culture." How would you describe it?
I think, well, beyond just the fun stuff, now we have kind of switched gears. And the middle of last year, Ryan just signed it was a month-to-month lease, but we had been going to a co-working space and just kinda as you need, we'll meet up once or twice a week. And Ryan said, "You know what? I'm just making this happen. And which is a very Ryan thing to do, and just said, "Hey, we have an office." And so we got into the office, and now we are in the office 3 days a week, which is not crazy, in this world. And I think 5 days could be great, but none of us are ready for that. So there's some accountability there. But if a recruiter were taking in a job, I would say every recruiter says this, and it might be somewhat true, but we are like we want to care about people as much as we can. We have a conscience, like we need to work with it. Uh, and we try to do right by the client. So, for instance, I have one situation right now where uh, the candidate stayed 6 months. Our guarantee is 90 days for our contingent guarantee. And they reached out and said, "What can you do?" And the answer for us is like, "We're not going to leave you hanging at 6 months, right?" So we'll either replace it or we'll find some way to make you happy at the end of this. And there's no looks from Ryan or James like, "No, just take the money." There's zero expectation there. In fact, if I didn't do something for that client after 6 months, they'd look at me and say, "Really? Is this right?" And I think that's something we want to ingrain in people around us. Like that's a small thing, and I think a lot of recruiters will do it, but certainly not all. Certainly not a lot. I know from the past. And there's a way you want to protect your business, but uh, you also want you want to sit in front of people. And we are local in part because if I see you at a coffee shop, I don't want to have to hide. I want to say hello. I want to sit down with you, see how your family's doing, and not feel like my conscience is being pricked.
Love that. Well said. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head because values are central to culture, right? It's really the most tangible thing you can define a culture by is values. So that's awesome, Jenny. In terms of tactics, so you guys have, you've built a business from scratch, one new business, you've come through a tough market. What's working for you guys in terms of, you know, building business and generating new clients right now?
Well, I think we're kind of settled in, thankfully, after this stretch. But it's the basics. I think we are still big on cold calls. We do business development calls that are cold. We try to do a little bit. I try to do a little bit on LinkedIn, or a lot, as much as I can. Um, we have back to Karen and Tanya and just what they're doing with the database. Like I feel like most of our markets are pretty well mapped, pretty well coded tagged. So if I have a candidate that fits X kind of client, I could just do a quick search. X kind of client knows about them.
Love it.
And so that's helpful. Another thing I learned, I was listening to some unrelated podcast, and this real estate guy in some other place sends out like a house of the week. So I've just been sending out a job of the week to my like 300 target candidates in one market. And now when I'm calling them, oh yeah, I get your emails. Yeah, the job of the week. Yeah, I have somebody like, and we put like a very clear referral bonus on there. So it's the shortest, easiest email I write every day, and I like give myself like props. I have like a point system for myself, and I like give myself some 5 points, which means nothing to you, but makes me feel good.
Love this. So 3 key things I'm taking away from that.
Mhm.
And you said, so back to basics, it's being on the phone. Number 2 is your database is very well, built out, coded. So it makes it easy to market candidates or target, put campaigns together. And number 3 is you're also actively posting on LinkedIn. Like in terms of cold calling, is there a number per day, or is it like amount of time, or what's the commitment to that?
Well, we don't have crazy KPIs. I think, so team-wise, I believe it's like 50 contacts a week or connects. So not like if you get voicemails, that doesn't count for anything. So that's across the board. So if you have a candidate heavy week, fine. If you have a BD heavy week, fine. Um, I try for like 20 contacts a day. I have a whole new system I'm trying this quarter, which I like so far. But yeah, I try for it comes out to about 20 calls a day.
Okay,
Connects.
awesome. 20 connects a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Well, a connect could be a text that says, I will be at this interview at X amount of time. Like, so it's
Okay,
not as
so it's a
crazy.
touch point. So what
Yeah.
counts as a connect?
So a connect is a candidate or client, I guess having some sort of investment in your conversation. So it's a call, it's an internal, it's a response to a LinkedIn message with like a move forward.
Okay.
So not too
So
crazy.
it's where you get some kind of engagement.
Yeah.
So
there you
it
go.
could be a
Yeah.
conversation
Right.
you don't get hung up on.
Right.
If it's a LinkedIn message, they actually respond,
Right.
then it counts as a connect.
Right.
Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Love it. Jenny, we could keep talking because this is fun, but we've already been at it
Okay.
for an hour.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
thank you so much. I'm
Thank you.
so glad and grateful that you agreed to do this.
Yeah, for sure. Can I actually say a couple more things?
Oh,
Or you
please.
can,
Sorry. Absolutely.
no, I think, well, just because I'm here and it's something that is, I do volunteer in a couple of job search groups, and I have found, and just for recruiters in general, like that's been very meaningful to me because our job does become very transactional. We're headhunting. We can't help millions of people that reach out to us, but I have been involved since I started recruiting. I actually found my first job through like a job search group where a recruiter spoke. So I got to volunteer back there, and I'm on the board post COVID. The DC group followed me down or stayed with me, and there's virtual meetings, so I get to still volunteer with these two groups, Career Confidence and Career Network Ministry. And when I do that, it's like a energizer in the job itself, because the job can get meaningless or can feel meaningless, can feel demoralizing, all these things. And then when you actually use those skills to go help somebody, it's like, like you have like 3 more weeks of energy left. So I just want to add
Love
that.
that. So we'll put the links in the show notes, but tell
Yeah.
me again, what were the 2 groups?
So they're called Career Confidence. And if anyone ever wanted to be on a panel, there's always opportunities for any recruiter, any level, to be on panels. Career Confidence and Career Network Ministry.
That is awesome, Jenny. And yeah, I can see that really topping up your own fulfillment and energy for the job as well. So fantastic. Is there anything else we haven't discussed that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think that's all.
All right. Thank you so much,
All right,
Jenny.
thanks, Mark.